Hello, I'm Khan Ross, a former British diplomat and diplomatic advisor to countries and political movements all over the world. This is my weekly review. There are 4 stories I want to look at this week. First, Ukraine. Russia has dramatically stepped up its drone attacks on Ukraine's towns and cities. On the night of the 9th of July, for instance, it launched over 700 drones, many of them Shahed drones, originally supplied by Iran, but now built by Russia, as well as ballistic and cruise missiles. The word drone sounds relatively innocuous, perhaps like those little 4-rotor quadcopters we can buy as toys. But Shaheds are not little drones. The Russian versions carry warheads of 90 kilograms and are often packed with ball bearings, incendiaries, or other forms of shrapnel to maximize lethality, i.e., they are designed to kill as many people as possible. This is a terror tactic designed to intimidate and kill Ukrainian civilians. These attacks are not on the front lines against tanks and soldiers. They are indiscriminate attacks on civilian areas. This is a war crime, one of very many committed by Russia, and one day I hope Putin and his henchmen are held accountable. Second, Syria. You may have seen reporting of ethnic clashes in Syria's south, along with reports that Israel has bombed both Damascus and Syrian government forces in the south in order, they say, to protect the Druze minority. It is very difficult to get accurate information. Social media is awash with appalling atrocity videos of executions and torture by one side or other. I don't recommend watching them as they are disgusting and distressing. Sometimes a video of corpses is used to allege abuses by the Druze. Then the same video appears as supposed evidence of government atrocities. It's a messy fight, with armed men, often without uniforms to denote who they are, sometimes in pickup trucks, going around towns and villages, killing each other and civilians. I am always suspicious when I see Western reports of inter-ethnic clashes. This is a trope of Western reporting about places like the Balkans or the Middle East. It is, of course, a form of Orientalism, a way of essentializing other places, usually colonies or former colonies. Essentializing means reducing a race, ethnicity, or country to certain essential, usually negative characteristics. It is a form of racism. Indeed, like all forms of essentializing, or indeed reducing complexity into simplification, it is an act of mental violence. It is an easy way to avoid understanding deeper causes and power dynamics. It produces a distance between them over there and us. Such essentializing was a commonplace in Western policy during Serbia's genocidal war in Bosnia, which was dismissed as ethnic civil war and therefore not warranting of intervention. Those who support the Druze say that government forces have been involved in killing and committing atrocities against the Druze. Meanwhile, there are analysts sitting in Washington who lay more of the blame at the door of the Druze. One should be very suspicious of these sources. The thing to note about these commentators is that they are not on the ground. They are thousands of miles away. Often they are funded by outside states with a clear interest in Syria, though rarely do these commentators confess it. Only those that are on the ground can convey the truth, and even then only very partially. The whole truth, if such a thing can exist, can only be pieced together after the event, drawing on multiple sources. Third topic, complicity in genocide. I talked earlier this week about genocide and the common features of genocides that are going on today in Sudan, Ukraine and Gaza, and from history including Rwanda, Bosnia and the Holocaust. I talk a lot about Gaza because my government is an ally of Israel and continues to supply it with arms and conducts intelligence gathering flights over Gaza, where intelligence is then shared with Israel, a country that is committing genocide by starving, bombing and driving out the civilian population, in particular by rendering Gaza uninhabitable, in direct contravention of the specific measures the International Court of Justice demanded Israel take to prevent genocide. The UN reported this week that a classroom of children has been killed every day in Gaza, and now they are being starved too. Nicaragua has presented a case at the ICJ that Germany is complicit in Israel's genocide by supplying it with weapons. It's an important case not only for Germany, but because if Germany is guilty, so is the UK, France, and of course the United States. Complicity in genocide is a crime, a grave crime, under the Genocide Convention of 1949, a treaty that originated as a response to the Holocaust. It will take years for the ICJ to produce its decision, unfortunately. But what will happen if Germany is found complicit in genocide? Well, not a lot, unfortunately. Serbia was found guilty of not preventing genocide in Bosnia. The consequences it suffered as a result were insignificant. But note that the ICJ case is about states, not individuals. I don't think individuals should hide behind states. It is individuals, ministers and officials, who take the decisions to send weapons to Israel or to the UAE, which then hands them over to the genocidal RSF in Sudan. It is they who should be held responsible. Notably, the Genocide Convention does apply to individuals, companies, for instance, arms companies, bankers, and other actors, not only states, who enable genocide. Individuals, prime ministers, foreign ministers, senior officials take the decisions that amount to complicity, the delivery of weapons, the approval of reconnaissance flights, acts which enable genocide, or the decisions not to stop genocide, also a clear obligation under the convention. The UK or Germany could impose measures to attempt to stop Israel committing genocide, such as sanctions. They have chosen not to do so. If a state is found complicit in genocide, the individuals who made that decision will escape prosecution or punishment. But where is the moral onus here? The Nuremberg Tribunal, established, of course, after the Second World War, clearly established the principle of individual responsibility for crimes against humanity. Article 6c of the Nuremberg Charter explicitly listed crimes against humanity as an international offence and held individuals, including state officials and leaders, personally accountable for such crimes. Individual responsibility was one of the key innovations of international law that resulted from Nazi atrocities in the Second World War. Why is it that individuals like Starmer, Biden, Sunak or Merz should escape personal consequences for enabling or at least failing to stop the horror of genocide? If they knew they might face personal consequences for this grave crime, I suspect that they would reconsider their actions. A final note. Last week, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, did something extraordinary. In an act of great symbolism, they burned their weapons. Not all of them, but some of them, as an act to declare the end of the armed struggle. That armed struggle has lasted over 40 years at a cost of over 40,000 lives and the displacement of hundreds of thousands more. The PKK, led by its leader Abdullah Öcalan, have chosen the path of non-violence and negotiation. There are secret negotiations ongoing with Turkey about the rights and status of Kurds in Turkey. An agreement will have ramifications elsewhere, including Syria, which also has a substantial Kurdish minority. We don't know if these negotiations will succeed in agreeing some kind of new constitutional settlement to protect Turkey's largest minority, 20 million Kurds, but the PKK clearly hope that it shall. I hope they're right, but much, perhaps too much, depends on the whim of one man, Turkey's autocratic leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan. This issue was one of the remaining messes left by the colonialists, the failure to grant a state to the Kurds in Turkey, Syria, Iran and Iraq when the Ottoman Empire was arbitrarily carved up by the white Europeans in the Treaty of Sèvres in 1920. Maybe this mess is approaching some kind of resolution, if not a fully just one. Of course, the original perpetrators of the mess could not care less, and most people in Europe have no idea of their country's responsibility. There is almost zero international attention on the peace negotiations, though it doesn't help that they are secret. But I don't think this lack of attention is a good thing. Attention helps hold the parties accountable and less able to wriggle out of their commitments later. That's it for this week. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for further analyses. Thank you.